Now that the annoyance is out of the picture, we can unwind and enjoy ourselves, he murmured into his niece's ear. The source of the nuisance was none other than his daughter. I had to abruptly leave for a business trip, and the thought of being away from my daughter for days left me anxious. However, John reassured me and bid me farewell with words of peace. John and my daughter often spent quality time together, so I felt confident leaving her in his care. Yet there had been some peculiar behavior from my daughter lately. In hindsight, I should have delved deeper into those feelings. As I departed, my daughter clung to my leg, pleading with me not to go to work. Unfortunately, I failed to notice her desperate SOS, making me feel like a failure as a mother. Little did I know that John would lock my daughter in the storage room and embark on a trip with his niece. I can never forgive John for the irreversible actions he took with my daughter and his niece. My name is Sher. I married John the same year I got pregnant with Samantha, who is now my 5-year-old daughter. Our meeting was quite ordinary, facilitated by a common friend's introduction. At the time, John, fond of kids, worked at a toy manufacturer, while I had just been selected for a work project. Marriage wasn't on our minds, but the news of my pregnancy changed everything. Concerned about taking maternity leave and being sidelined from the project, I felt disheartened about my future. Seeing others at my company go through similar situations made me feel ashamed for doubting my future. John comforted me, promising to quit his job and become a full-time stay-at-home dad. He had taken his current job with the dream of creating toys for our future kids. With his involvement in product development, he was already contributing to the market. His words convinced me to have our daughter, and I returned to work 3 months after giving birth. Despite the challenges of returning to work soon after childbirth, I worked hard, motivated by thoughts of John and Samantha waiting at home. Now I lead a newly launched project and try to balance work and family time. John's commitment as a full-time stay-at-home dad was not fully understood by society, but as a family we managed our roles well and lived happily, despite the occasional weekend work and unavoidable business trips. My daughter always encouraged me with strong words. One day, my sister-in-law discussed her divorce, highlighting frequent clashes with her husband. John jokingly offered his support, and I agreed with his words. She had played a crucial role when John decided to become a full-time stay-at-home dad. Her support helped us maintain a good relationship with our in-laws. When she mentioned moving to our neighborhood, we welcomed the idea without hesitation. She had to leave her rental apartment after the divorce and considered going back to her in-laws' house an hour's drive away. However, the prospect of moving to our neighborhood would make her commute difficult, and Lily would have to change schools. Fortunately, our house fell within Lily's school district, and they found a vacant apartment nearby. Deciding to move in, John suggested, and we agreed, to look after Lily after school until her mother finished work. My sister-in-law, who had been working part-time, transitioned to full-time employment following her divorce. With her working hours increasing, she was concerned about Lily being home alone after school, especially now in 5th grade. My sister-in-law worried about being overprotective. However, John convinced her, it's better to be cautious, especially while Lily is in elementary school. John had always adored his niece, and she affectionately referred to him as Big Brother. I also persuaded my sister-in-law that it would be beneficial for her daughter to have my daughter as a playmate. We agreed that Lily would stay with us when her mother was at work, marking the beginning of our new family life. Living close by, my daughter and her cousin saw each other often, quickly adapting to the new routine. Everything seemed to be off to a smooth start. However, my daughter suddenly began resisting being apart from me. Despite being used to seeing me off to work since she was very young, she clung to my leg, unwilling to let go. I wondered if she was feeling lonely or if there was some other anxiety causing this new behavior. Reassurances like, "Mommy's just going to work, I'll be back tonight," didn't seem to soothe her. Each time, she shook her head. When I mentioned Lily being there in the evening, my daughter would grip my leg even tighter. At a loss, John gently coaxed her off me, saying, "It's okay. Let mommy go to work now. Let's wave goodbye to her. Reluctantly, my daughter would then wave goodbye. As John spoke those words, I couldn't help but wonder what was causing my daughter to behave this way. Despite my concerns, my job kept me from spending as much time with her as I wanted. Even when I discussed it with John, he optimistically suggested that maybe something happened at preschool. Besides, he added, Lily is here too. If there's something she can't talk to us about, she might be talking to Lily. You think so? I hoped that was the case. Don't worry. Look at this picture from today, he said, showing me a photo on his phone of Lily and my daughter whispering to each other, covering their mouths as if sharing a secret. See? Perhaps children find it easier to talk amongst themselves. I nodded, deciding not to press my daughter for answers. Lily adored my daughter like a little sister, and I hoped my daughter's behavior was just a phase. I was nearing a point where my work would settle down, so I planned to take some leave and spend time with my daughter soon. I told myself that. Shortly thereafter, a business trip came up suddenly, and I had to be away from home for 5 days. Despite my concerns about my daughter, John's encouraging words, "Don't worry, go ahead," motivated me, and I packed my bags and left. 2 days later, Lily was visiting, and I left the house with John, my daughter, and Lily seeing me off. I remember John and Lily smiling broadly, but I wonder about my daughter. At the time, I had no idea that something unexpected would happen. By the time I boarded Amtrak, things were unfolding at home that I had not expected. John had started preparing to leave, and seeing this, Lily asked anxiously, "Isn't Samantha coming with us?" John replied, "Samantha is going to join her mom on the business trip. As soon as her mom comes back from the office, they'll head out together." Satisfied with this explanation, Lily left with John. 4 days later, John returned from the trip in a great mood, casually chatting with a downcast Lily about how much fun the trip was. Right before opening the front door, John's eyes caught the storage shed in the corner of the yard, and he turned pale. It was then he remembered that he had left his daughter behind. She must have come out by now. I didn't lock it after all, he muttered to himself. Lily overheard this and exclaimed in shock, "You left Samantha in there." She ran toward the shed, ignoring John's attempts to stop her. Lily urgently called out my daughter's name as she approached the shed. The sight that met them was an unidentifiable liquid seeping out from under the shed's door. "What is this?" "No way," Lily exclaimed, attempting to open the shed door in a panic. But John stopped her, saying, "Stop. Don't look, Lily." Lily, confused, questioned, "What do you mean, don't look? Is Samantha in there?" Her uncle turned pale. "Blaming her husband, my sister-in-law, why did you leave her there? You said Samantha was going with Cher on her business trip." Lily's cries of anguish echoed. John, blamed by Lily, trembled, saying, "What have I done?" It was then that I finally spoke up from behind him, my voice cold and intense. "Where have you been?" My daughter, standing next to me, mirrored my anger with accusing eyes. John hesitantly turned around, frozen in shock upon seeing me and Samantha. "Sherry." Contrary to his astonishment, Lily, upon seeing Samantha, burst into tears and hugged her. "Thank goodness, Samantha, you're safe." Hugged by Lily, Samantha shifted her gaze away from John and hugged Lily back, as if confirming her safety. I wondered how much these children had been affected by John's actions. I stood protectively in front of my daughter Samantha and niece Lily. Yet John, with faint concern, muttered, "I'm glad you're safe." His words, uttered after leaving Samantha behind, irked me. I confronted him. "Glad she's safe after you left her behind? What are you saying now?" Samantha, now safe, spoke up. "She wanted to be with you." "And why are you here, Sherry? Weren't you on a business trip? You were supposed to return tomorrow." Realization dawned on John, and he stammered, "Oh, so you thought you'd be back before I got home. Could it be that you often leave Samantha like this when I'm away?" John fell silent at my words, his silence more affirming than anything else. "I've already heard the story from Samantha. I'll be hearing it from Lily as well." Turning to Lily, who was still embracing Samantha, she met my gaze firmly and nodded, as if she had made a decision. The fact that I was able to rescue my daughter Samantha was a stroke of sheer luck. The thought of what could have happened if my business trip dates hadn't changed sent shivers down my spine. On the day I was supposed to leave, I indeed boarded the Amtrak. However, I received a sudden notification that the trip was cancelled, so I got off the train mid-journey and returned home. Since the trip was called off, I could return home directly, arriving earlier than my usual time. Finally, I would have a chance to talk with Samantha. I took a taxi from the station, rushing home. As I got out of the taxi and approached the front door, I heard a voice calling, "Mommy." Thinking Samantha had seen me and was running toward me, I turned toward the voice, only to be shocked. Samantha's voice was coming from inside the storage shed. Panicked, I opened the shed door to find my daughter drenched in sweat, sobbing uncontrollably. At her feet lay the burst remnants of a water-filled bouncy ball that I had given her. This toy was developed by John when he was still working at the toy manufacturer. I had given it to Samantha, hoping to cheer her up when she first started showing signs of distress. Apparently, she panicked when she realized the door was shut, either throwing or stepping on the ball, causing it to burst. The liquid seeping out of the shed was from this ruptured bouncy ball. The floor was also scattered with Samantha's old clothes. "What happened? Why are you in here?" I hugged my crying daughter and asked. What she told me ignited a fury in me the likes of which I had never felt before in my life. Samantha said that John asked her to look for my jewelry. She was deeply shocked both from being left behind and being locked in. Locked in? The door wasn't locked. I thought she would come out on her own. Being suddenly shut in is frightening even for adults. It's not surprising she panicked and couldn't open it, I thought to myself. Samantha had been enduring John's behavior, not wanting to worry her mom. And John had misunderstood this as Lily being fond of him. After we started looking after Lily, John began to favor her, neglecting Samantha. My daughter felt increasingly lonely as John paid attention only to Lily. But Samantha, caring for me and my busy schedule, could only express her feelings in such a way. It seemed she also knew Lily was troubled by John's behavior. The photo of them whispering might have been taken while they were discussing this. Samantha really wanted to talk to me about Lily and hoped I could help in some way. However, Samantha didn't have the right words to accurately convey this. Unsure of how to express it to me, Samantha's words to me were hesitant, yet she cared deeply for Lily despite feeling lonely herself. What a kind-hearted child she is. After hearing from Samantha, I immediately called John, but he didn't answer no matter how many times I called. Usually, he would call back right away, and it was unusual for him not to answer. Something was wrong. Believing this, I reached out to my sister-in-law. During this conversation, I learned the shocking fact: John had told her he was going on a trip with Samantha and Lily. John had contacted my sister-in-law as soon as he found out about my business trip. Sherry is going on a long business trip. During that time, I thought of taking Samantha and Lily on a trip because Samantha might feel lonely. What do you think? My sister-in-law agreed, thinking it would be good for Lily. Of course, I hadn't heard anything about this plan from John. Hearing this, I felt as if the blood had drained from my face. Could John have been planning to leave Samantha alone at home during this trip? I informed my sister-in-law that Samantha was actually at home. When I mentioned that I couldn't reach John, she said she would try calling him herself, and we ended the call. I thought something was off and checked around the house. I was shocked to find lots of prepared meals in the fridge and the water heater for the bath left on. Could it be that he prepared all this so Samantha could stay alone? That is, John had planned to leave our 5-year-old daughter alone for 4 days with just these arrangements. My sister-in-law managed to reach John, who was apparently at the theme park with Lily. He casually said, "I'll have to hang up, our turn for the attraction is coming." She also received pictures of Lily alone at the park, confirming Lily's safety. Angry yet relieved about Lily's safety, my sister-in-law and I decided to wait for John and Lily's return. John, perhaps as an alibi, had sent me a picture of Samantha and Lily, which must have been taken previously at our house. My sister-in-law received photos of Lily playing at the theme park. There was even a fake story of the two having fun together to pretend for it. So John, believing he had fooled us, returned home in high spirits, having completely forgotten about the daughter he left behind. Why did my husband want to go on a trip with only his niece so desperately? Why did John want to go on a trip only with Lily? These questions were beyond understanding. His affection for his niece was one thing, but his actions were abnormal. I wasn't the only one who thought so. Really, what were you thinking? Leaving your own daughter behind to go on a trip with your niece? That's abnormal. Sis, why are you here? My sister-in-law burst in, out of breath, likely having run here straight from work. Seeing her, Lily left Samantha and ran to her aunt. "Mom. Lily, I'm sorry." Then, for the first time, Lily told us everything about what my husband had done. As soon as we started looking after Lily, John began to pay attention only to her. According to what Samantha told me, it appeared so to Samantha, but in reality, it was more distressing for Lily. John had an unusual obsession with taking photos of Lily. At first, Lily agreed to John's requests for photos, believing they were to be sent to her mother, and she smiled for the camera. However, over time, John's behavior began to escalate. He started making specific demands for poses, and Lily began to feel uncomfortable. When Lily once refused and said no, John threatened her, saying he would tell her mother, making it seem like he was blaming Lily for not complying. "Lily is a naughty girl for not listening. Maybe I should tell your mom that we can't look after you anymore. She would surely be troubled then." Manipulating Lily's desire not to upset her mom, John continued to take her pictures, and eventually, he took her on a trip, just the two of them. I really didn't want to go on the trip. It was creepy when he held my hand. "Hey, Lily, that's not true, right? You used to be happy with me, asking me to pick you up." Hearing this, my sister-in-law yelled, "How old was she when you're talking?" and hugged Lily tightly again. Lily, like Samantha, had been enduring John's behavior, not wanting to worry her aunt. And John had misunderstood this as Lily being fond of him. My sister-in-law tearfully apologized to Lily for not sensing the danger and agreeing to the trip so casually. She regretted her complacency for always having John look after Lily. "I'm sorry, Lily. If only I had been more careful." Lily shook her head in her mother's arms, saying in a trembling voice that she never wanted to see John again. John began to panic pathetically. "Don't say that, Lily. I just wanted to show you affection. Stay away from Lily from now on." But then my sister-in-law demanded he delete the photos and snatched his phone from him in his panicked state. However, upon seeing the photo folder, she was lost for words. There was an abnormal amount of photos of Lily saved. Lily's expressions in the photos seemed like forced smiles, but it was clear she was frightened. In retrospect, all the photos John sent never had Lily looking directly at the camera. John must have noticed the change in Lily's expressions too, that's why he only sent photos where Lily's expressions weren't clear. Yet he let his desires run wild and took Lily away. Disgusting. I felt nauseated by John's abnormal behavior. My sister-in-law, holding the phone tightly, seemed frozen in place. We both shielded our daughters behind us, confronting John. There was no way I could forgive him for leaving Samantha behind, and I didn't want him near our daughters ever again. All feelings of affection had vanished in an instant. It's not like that. Listen to me. I love Lily, and of course I love Samantha too. John continued to make excuses, only further frightening Samantha and Lily. I presented him with the divorce papers I had prepared during his trip, gathered our belongings, took Samantha, and left the house. I couldn't bear to share the same air with him for another moment. My sister-in-law and Lily followed us out. All that followed were my husband's sad screams. Afterward, I took my sister-in-law and Lily to their parents' house and informed them about John's behavior. When I mentioned leaving him with the divorce papers, my in-laws promised to handle everything. Everything from there, they assured us they would prevent John from approaching us again. Lily finally seemed to find some peace upon hearing their words. My sister-in-law and Lily decided to stay with my in-laws for the time being, planning to sort out work and school later, though it likely meant Lily would have to change schools. We couldn't discount the possibility of John lurking around her school route. Samantha and I decided to return to my parents' home too. During John's trip, I had been managing work, household chores, and child care alone. Thankfully, Samantha was a resilient child, and I felt confident that we could manage well on our own. Living without John, just the two of us, seemed entirely feasible. Those hellish 4 days indeed contributed to my newfound confidence. For a while, we'll live at my parents' house, grateful for their kindness. But I plan to move closer to my workplace before Samantha starts elementary school. We started our new lives. But John was still stuck in the past. Thanks to my in-laws, I was able to finalize the divorce from John without ever having to see him. But he continued to call afterward and even showed up at my parents' house, despite being cut off by my in-laws from any contact with me, my daughter, and the residents of his parents' home. John pathetically tried to seek reconciliation. I can't imagine a life without Cher and Samantha. His words only instilled fear in me. I asked my parents to contact the police, who came and took away John, who was screaming at our doorstep. He was served a restraining order by the police and finally seemed to understand he was alone. All this destruction was his doing, and it was too late for regrets. I wondered how John, having been a stay-at-home dad, planned to live since then, but that was no longer my concern. Samantha had been down for a while after the incident, but she's finally starting to smile again. Though divorced from John, we still keep in touch with my sister-in-law and Lily, and their smiles are returning too. To overwrite the traumatic memories of the theme park with Lily, we are planning a trip there, just the 4 of us. I'm looking forward to creating many happy memories for Samantha and Lily.